Hello everyone, good evening and welcome to round number 11 of the UK and Ireland Radical Race Series. We are here at the infamous Oulton Park circuit in the UK, just about to get underway for qualifying. My name is Daniel Handover, and joining me in the commentary box this time out for round number 11 is Mr. Alex Goldschmidt. Alex, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a while, obviously, since we've been in the commentary booth together, but I'm very excited to jump in the comms booth with you once again. And what a track to do it at, Oulton Park with the Radical Race Series.
Celebrating its 70th anniversary next August. This particular circuit I've been to before. Based in the heart of Cheshire, just outside the leafy little village of Little Budworth. But it's a fantastic circuit. The variation we're going to be using tonight is going to be the international circuit, but it's without the chicanes. So no turn 11 at Hislops, no 7, 8 and 9 through Britons. It's going to be a flat out foray in these radicals. And it's been a while since I've actually been on the UK and Ireland Radical Race Series on the previous generation car. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the new cars stack up.
Indeed, well, absolutely. So, as we have talked about this whole new season, it's been something that the drivers are getting a little bit used to with these cars. We've definitely seen some mixed reviews and mixed feelings about this car moving forward. And again, it's always an adjustment when it comes to a new car. But when it comes to what we've seen with the championship, we do still have a very, very close championship on our hands with only a couple of rounds to go. Bear in mind, we do have some drop rounds taken into account here already, but it's always one of those things. It's quite hard to then know what really happens until right at the very end, obviously, when the checkered flag had dropped for that final race. So, if we actually look at the points currently now, while drivers are making their way out for their first qualifying laps, we can see at the top of the standing, still Simon Edwards, 299 points. But then we have Luke Maxwell with 281 in second, Buston in P3. A little bit of point gap down from second to third. Paul Clark in fourth, Brown in fifth, Bird sixth, Damien G 7th, Michael LeMay in 8th, Dave Rolliston 9th, and then Martina Ward in P10. Looking down as well, especially in that midfield like we talked about for the majority of this season, there's still quite a lot of positions up for grabs if you have a good couple of rounds. We have seen this as well. We've seen a lot of movement in these final couple of rounds from people within that midfield. So it's certainly very much all to play for. A couple of drivers, that was Graham Brown just going past on your screen. So moving forward now into qualifying. As Alex, you mentioned, we've both been to this circuit, and what a fantastic circuit it is. This configuration I haven't seen in real life without the chicanes, but one thing is for certain, this track is very, very fast. It's fast enough as it is, let alone without the chicanes.
You've also got a lot of elevation changes, especially going down into Cascades, off of the avenue when they're going through Denton. So that's quite a steep descent down. And I mean, going through Cascades, you've got a very, very significant left-hand down camber as Simon Edwards making his way through what will be effectively turn 7 at Britons, heading down Hislops and in towards Knickerbrook, which will be at turn number 11, and hard on the brakes. Paul Clark already goes top the timesheets, 1 minute 19.55, but Luke Maxwell, who currently has 4 wins and 7 top 5s, goes quicker by nearly the best part of a second, 1 minute 18.61, so the number 118, doing it very, very good job as Damien Gee comes across the line to start a hot lap.
Indeed, he does. First hot lap is underway. Well, his first lap didn't actually count. He must have got an off track somewhere. There's a few more drivers somewhere, but now takes that pole position. He's got a couple of tenths in hand of Luke Maxwell. Again, we're going to see a lot of this. We've seen this before throughout the entire season. There's a lot of chopping and changing between the top step of the podium. John Hutchison just about to come across the line for his first lap. What is it going to be as he comes along? There we go. Another 600 of a second. Takeout is close already, and we've seen this within the front of the field, especially this last half of the season when the drivers are starting to get into the rhythm of the car. It does become very, very close at the top. Unfortunately, wasn't the best round for a couple of drivers last time out, and hopefully this will be a different story for them. John Hutchison in the Pink Panther, unfortunately, being one of the drivers, didn't have a great race last time out. Phil Glover just goes into 6th position. So a couple of drivers still yet to set their first lap times on the board. Luke Maxwell's just pipped him by another 0.2 of a second. See what I mean, Alex? It's all about this leapfrogging. It's just a constant. You can never stay on one driver for too long because there's always something else going on.
I remember commentating, funnily enough, I was actually in Bagoth not too far outside of Donington Park, where the round was, surprisingly enough, Donington Park. John McCutcheon and Simon Edwards were embroiled in a battle, and John actually won that battle. Simon Edwards goes under 118 for the first time in this session, 1 minute 17.93, nearly 3/10 up the road from Luke Maxwell. But then you look at John McCutcheon, Mike Busson down in 4th place, pretty much within 1/1000th. McCutcheon's just gone across the line, has improved to a 1 minute 18.316. Damien Gee, who rounds out the top 12, still waiting for times at the moment from the number 27 of Paul LeMay and the number 8 of Oliver Ettridge.
Indeed, Oliver Ettridge just about to come across the line. He goes up into 7th as he drops down into turn 1. Back in, tries to step out. You hear again that, just hear the turbo being the pressure release of that turbo. Very, very aggressive car. It's a very, very fast car as well. It's arguably, it's pretty much as fast as the old SR8, but in a slightly different way. One of the things that we have seen that tends to be a pretty sort of across the board comment that people have is this car is a lot more front end heavy. It pushes a lot more on the front. You have to manage understeer rather than oversteer, whereas what we saw in the SR8, that was very much you had to balance the oversteer. It's very, very crucial, but this one pretty much the opposite. So again, it's just that drivers adapting to it as well. Martina Ward just goes up into 7th, and I believe that's Graham Brown has just pipped John Hutchison and Mike Busson as well, and believe we do have, we've actually got Simon Edwards Simon Edwards has finished. He has qualified provisional pole position, but can John Hutchison take that position? He moves up. He goes ahead of Graham Brown, but that is him. That is his qualifying done and dusted. He won't be improving on his times. Neither will Graham Brown. Phil Glover, though, he's got half a lap to go on his final lap. So, provisionally, Simon Edwards at the top step. Only by, what's that, a 5,000th of a second?
If that, Phil Glover now hoons the car through, going towards Warwick Bridge and then into Lodge Corner, which will be the final opportunity to get the good run coming through Dearly, which is a bit of a roller coaster here at Oulton Park. You know, you go down the dip, up the incline towards the checkered flag, and hopefully Phil Glover can improve on what's been a 13th, well, best effort of a 13th. Through Dearleap he comes, and will that be an improvement from P13? Phil Glover across the line, and does not improve. Well, actually, that's his best lap, but does not improve in terms of position. Martina Ward, unfortunately. Martina Ward currently 10th in the championship standings coming into this penultimate round of season number 3 for 2022. Actually had an off-track and aborted the lap.
Bit of a shame, is it? It's always a tricky thing, especially, you know, an off track, you're on a good lap, you're trying to push hard, and it just, you know, Oulton Park tends to be relatively clean for off tracks. It's not too difficult, you know, it's not too hard. It can be, as with anything, it's one of those areas. The exit of turn 1 tends to be a tricky position, because if you run a tiny bit too wide, even though you do have the track allowing you to, it does give you an off track. So there's a couple of areas where can be a little bit tricky. Oliver Ettridge, though, he goes across the line for his last time. That's a spin through turn 1. That's the hopefully the first, hopefully the only time we see that. Paul LeMay is just about to come across the line for his final lap. So 119.270. I think that's actually everyone. Yes, it is indeed. So everyone now has finished their qualifying. Paul LeMay just... practice start. Interesting. That's a good one. Remember, standing starts here. Practice starts very, very important. You have to get the clutch point right. To be fair, that looked like a relatively clean start. That's the key going down into turn 1. If you can get the jump on a couple of people, that could very well be a different... Because... even with this higher speed, you know, there's not too many braking zones, arguably less than what there is with the normal circuit. This can be a very, very hard track to overtake on, especially with these sort of cars, the fact that they've just got so much downforce.
I have to give a shout out to Paul LeMay for that wonderful Nissan tribute livery from the old R390 GT1s back in the day.
That's going back a bit, isn't it?
That's going back a long old day. If anyone might remember Mark Blundell's issue with the turbo, that meant that he had full displacement of the 1500 horsepower at Circuit de la Sarthe, and I think that was in the early 90s. He set a lap record around that 13.626 kilometre circuit. But yeah, I mean, here, like you said, with regards to coming back to the characteristics of the SR10, Dan, very much the case from what I remember from the SR8. The SR10 has a more aggressively dynamic profile at the front of the vehicle, hence why you're going to get this understeer characteristic. So the drivers are going to be a bit more on their P's and Q's when it comes to lining it up for moves up the inside, especially through Oulton. Cascades, we might see a run through there. Island Bend and Shell Oil's Corner are going to be two of the touch points. And by touch points, what I mean is points where things might happen.
Yes, that's probably the nicest way to put it.
Yes.
It tends to be, and we've seen this before. Very clean racing kit. It is that thing where, again, trying to push that car a little bit more, just trying to get a little bit more just out of the car generally. Camden, we have seen it a couple of times. There's been just a couple of little instances. We saw it a little bit of Hockenheim, and a small mistake here. Again, these drivers, they're pushing very, very hard, and that. One little slip. Bear in mind, there's not really that much runoff in terms of you can see how close the barriers are, and that tends to be pretty much what you get around the entire circuit, or at least most areas. Like, there's certain places where if it goes wrong, unfortunately, it is going to go wrong quite catastrophically. So, again, we'll have to see. Let's see what turn one brings. Going down into turn one, obviously, that's going to be a tricky point. They're all going to be concertinaing up into turn 2. The first big braking zone will be down into turn 5, into the hairpin at the top of the circuit. So will be interesting to see, again, that concertina effect where they all bunch up, and then you've got that long run down through 6, then into 7. I'm intrigued to see how tyres fare here as well. This is going to be there's not really many opportunity to slow the car down. So it's quite a high-speed circuit over an average lap. It's a quite high-speed average. So these tyres are going to have to be very, very well looked after. Lights are about to come on. When are we going to go? Who is going to get the jump? And we are away. A couple of puffs of smoke from John Hutchison. Didn't get the best start. He manages to stay in third, though. He's going to be ahead of Graham Brown. He's going to come up the inside. Luke Maxwell. Actually, John Hutchison does drive around the outside for a brief moment. Unfortunately, Luke Maxwell manages to get that move back on John Hutchison. But as they go down into turn 3, is it going to be Hutchison? He's on the inside. Does he get it? Tracks the car out wide nicely. Maxwell, tiny bit of understeer you just saw in the car there. Couldn't quite get the understeer sorted, and that may have put him in a position where Graham Brown might have a look. No, decides against it. Coming down into turn 5, everyone's pretty much single file already. Couple of moves possibly going on in the back, doesn't seem like it. Paul Clark was defending from Oliver Etris just a little bit there, but Simon Edwards makes a break. He's about 7 tenths ahead of John Hutchison already, but Hutchison's got a very, very good, strong start of the race, as we can see here. The gap has opened up somewhat, just at the first sort of 5 cars as they go through turn 7 for the first time. Again, a very, very fast corner. That someone's gone off. That is Mike Busson that's gone off. He's managed to only lose 1 position. Well, it's actually 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 positions. That's a bit less than a bit more than he was expecting, but manages to keep it on. That's a very, very well saved incident there. That could have gone very, very wrong. He does manage to stave that. That's pretty much the only incident we've actually seen. That was really, again, very well saved. Goes a little bit wide. Got a bit of grass on the tyres by the looks of it. Just goes a tiny, tiny bit wide there, down into the final corner. And that's the first lap done and dusted. The gap has opened up at the front. A good chunk. The top 3, top 4 have pulled away a little bit. But we'll have to see how that develops over the race. Meanwhile, still relatively clean down the rear end of the field as well.
Yeah, one of the things you said about the tyres, this circuit predominantly has a lot of right-hand corners, so Old Hall at turn 1, Shell Oil Corners, Oil's Corner Hairpin at turn 5, Knickerbrook, Druids, Lodge Corner, and then it's all over again. There's the way that Hutchison teed up that move on Luke Maxwell was actually pretty good. He tried to go around the outside of Cascades through turn 1, but ran a little bit wide, but still kept the throttle planted and kept it pointing in the right direction. So that was what really, really helped him. But then you look at the gap that Simon Edwards has already pulled out over McHutchinson. It's 6.5 tenths. We're going to see a nice little move here. I think that's Graham Brown, who's got Damien Gee and Dave Dowson just up ahead. Those two were battling away for position ever so briefly. as we ride on board with the number 40. But you can see just the amount of undulation. There's a lot of bumps here and there. I mean, especially the most pronounced one is the one they're going through now, which is heading in towards Lodge Corner, having come under the Warwick Bridge.
And you can see that, as you say, you can see that elevation change, and where that sort of undulation comes in, it's almost just in that braking zone, isn't it? So you've got a lot of compression happening, and then that compression gets unloaded halfway through the turning phase of the corner. So it's a really, really tricky corner complex to go through, that turn 11. That last corner, and even going down into, I think that's Martina Ward. That was Martina Ward having a big moment. It eventually turned into a spin. I think she manages to keep it out of moving back onto the circuit. We'll see if we can get a replay of that. Maybe a possible move gone wrong. We'll have to see a replay of how that pans out. Bit of a shame, unfortunately, there for Martina Ward. She's got a bit of ground to make back up. Glover is in the pits. Not entirely sure why. I think we might be able to get a replay of that as well. But yeah, elevation change. We've talked about it, and Oulton Park is very much... I think the only other track that's got sort of this aggressive elevation change would be Cadwell, I think, in the UK.
Yep, very much the case in Lincolnshire, about an hour north of the home of British karting, PF International. Oliver Ettridge, well, we were actually on board with Mike Bousson, who's got right in front of him Oliver Ettridge and Paul Clark. So battle for P6 very much on. Bousson waiting for an opportunity to strike. I think I just had a quick, brief look at Martina Ward. I think she went up the inside going through into Cascades. It was not quite an attempt. I think it might have been the remnants of an attempt, but yeah, thank goodness she kept it out of the barriers. Phil Glover, in the meantime, Dan, has been in the pits for nearly 2 minutes. I would suspect that's possibly damage or terminal damage that might... Well, he's just exited the pits after nearly 2 minutes, so looks to be a damage repair has been effected for the 07.
Indeed, yes. Let's see if we can queue up a couple of replays. Let's sit on board with Mike Busson for just a little bit longer, just to see again. He's pressuring the back of Oliver Ettridge quite a lot. You see he's taking quite a wide line here, trying to get the cut back. It's understandable. I wouldn't be doing this if the chicanes were in through that line, but as he tries to get a slightly wider line to cut back down into the hairpin of turn 5, that sort of makes a bit more sense. But remember, these drivers can decide what they want to have their car in terms of setup wise. It's not the fixed setup like the official series. They can choose what they want. So again, different aero packages may be affecting here. Seems to be Busson's got a very good run going down through 7, but can't quite make it. He tries to give it a go though. That's going to cost him big time. You see it then, the gap opens up. This is what we were talking about here. You've got to be committed with a move like this, and if you're committed, it's got to almost be... again, with a track like this, it's almost got to be done, otherwise you will lose some time and some momentum, but Busson does manage to get it back almost instantly. Paul Clark, let's not forget, he is just ahead. You can see him. Occasionally you see his car, the Golf-inspired livery there, or using the very similar to the Golf colours, and he's not too far ahead. We've actually got Paul May that's just a couple of seconds up the... Whoa! What
Paul Clark
there?
That was Paul Clark having a massive tank slapper. The back end stepped down to the right-hand side. Ettridge lost it completely. That was... The back end stepped out completely whilst trying to put the power down, going through the apex of Cascades. This is a replay we're going to see. This is Paul Glover. Oh, that was at Shell Oils, and whack, straight front nose into the barriers, and that was why he had a 2-minute repair pit stop.
Indeed. Not too. Let's see what... yeah, Martina Ward. So, in all honesty, I mean, it looked like maybe the rear have just swapped around a little bit, just in that braking zone. I wonder if it's going to be pretty much the same thing that will happen with Oliver Ettridge. Let's just see. It's a similar thing. So, yeah, it's in the braking zone. Just catches. Braking zone as you come into that turn 3. It just offloads the car, and before you know it, it's game over. That's a bit of a shame. Again, whilst we were talking about these cars, they're so stiff. The suspension is so stiff and so firm. A little error like that, or even not necessarily an error, it's just trying to catch the slide that the car may have induced on its own and trying to react to it. And by the time you've reacted, the car's then facing the other way. I've been in that position a few times, and it's not a nice position to be in, I can assure you. It's not indeed.
No, coming on to seeing the two different replays just then, Martina Clark was actually on the inside apex on the curbing of Cascades, which really nearly could have spat her into the wall, which was very lucky indeed. But like you said, Oliver Ettridge, just braking, turning in, the understeer's washing the car front, the front end, so the back end steps out, as we've got a great shot with Mike Bousson just behind Paul Clark. as they're making their way through. We're on lap number 6 out of 21 here at Oulton Park. Speeds approaching well over 260 kilometres. Look at the closing speed from Busan, but has to wait, lift off the throttle before going into the braking zone. And sometimes that can actually assist a little bit, because with these cars, turbochargers, what is there? There's normally lag.
Indeed, that's another good point. Is you've got to be in the power bank. If you're not in the power bank of the turbo kicking in, you do have it will have an impact on the straight line performance. The other thing as well is, I've been driving this car a little bit, and I don't almost think revving the car out fully is actually the most beneficial way. Normally, again, you put it to red line and off you go, but at that point it just drops off a little bit in terms of the boost. Just doesn't quite carry it all the way to the red line. So even that, trying to get the boost to spool up again is something that's the drivers, again, will start to get used to. They'll start to adapt to a little more. It's a bit wide there from Paul Clark. That might open the door, possibly, for Busson to have a go, and if he's going to have a look. It's tricky, because the other thing we're talking about now is a bit of aero wash. The cars are inherently more understeery than the previous generation Radicals, the SR8. Couple that with a bit of aero wash on the car in front, it doesn't necessarily help all in all. So it just sort of adds to the effect. But again, what's going to happen coming down? Is there going to be a move? You see Paul Clark, he's on the defensive straight away, moves across back to the left-hand side, knows that he's going to be able to commit relatively comfortably. Off he goes. Yep. So, yeah, braking points. You've got down into the hairpin and then down probably into the last corner. They're your two biggest overtaking, or the easiest overtaking opportunities, I should say. They're the sort of more straight cut. You can try go for a move into turn 1, but you've got to have a very good exit out of the last corner. It's little things like that which you don't necessarily think about. Is you could make a move, but you've got a lot more inherent risk, and you've got to be close enough. So again, where Mike Busson is, he's just too far back to make a move down into turn 1. Yeah,
well, he's getting closer to Paul Clark as they come out of Deer Leap and into Old Hall. Very close was Busson there, within about half a car length. But yeah, the biggest thing is because of the chicanes now sort of like being taken out, turn 7 at Knickerbrook is effectively a flat out right-hand sweeper. And you double that up with Clay Hill, but then when you get to Water Tower, which will be turn 9, you then got to put the brakes on as, the battle for the lead is very much heated up, because John McHutchinson, the Flying Scotsman, as I previously monikered him, is closing in on those in front. We're actually on board with Luke Maxwell, and this is a great battle. Top 3 covered by half a second, and they're heading into Knickerbrook now. 4th gear, midway through the rev range, so they've got good use of the power band. Up through Clay Hill in towards Water Tower as Mike Busson is going around the outside and goes into the gravel, and he's going to... he's saved that one. Mike Busson with the save of the night.
Absolutely. We're going to have to know. I just needed to see that. We're going to switch back now. God, this could be a change for the lead. John Hutchison goes up the inside, going into the last corner. There's going to be a bit of contact. There's a tiny bit of contact. John Hutchison manages to keep it straight and true, does the exact thing what he needed to do, and just belt the brakes, lock them up, and you go into that direction again. But what's going to happen a bit further down, this side-by-side between Hutchison and Maxwell, who's going to be It's going to be John Hutchison that still maintains, but Maxwell tries to come back, going through 2-0 there. Down to the inside for turn 3, perhaps. Not, unfortunately, a chance there either. So, John Hutchison has just got to get his cards in order, and I think he might be...
That's a brave move from Maxwell. That's going through into Island Bend, and now hard on the brakes into Shell Oils. McHutchinson's got the inside line once again. Maxwell slots in behind. Very good strategic driving there from Luke Maxwell. He was teeing it up nicely, but this run down through out of the kink, going through Britain's down Hilltop and then into Knickerbrook, where it's this flat out right hand kink taken at about 4th gear, probably about the best part of over 180 kilometres an hour. McHutchinson runs wide. That's going to give Maxwell the inside run through Clay Hill, and Maxwell gets through for P2, and there is Graham Brown right on McHutchinson's case.
He tries to give it a go. I thought Graham Brown in that, what a livery that is, the classic JPS inspired livery. Looks absolutely fantastic with this car. Yeah, I really thought there was going to be something on the cards there for Graham Brown, but couldn't quite get it. I wonder if this is again just John Hutchison is just pushed that car maybe a little bit too much. Tyres are a bit overheated, needs to let them cool down a bit. What that has allowed Simon Edwards to do is pull quite a sizable gap, just over a second away from Luke Maxwell. Now we're coming into halfway along from this race. That could be what is needed for Simon Edwards. We've seen again, we saw it a little bit, it's just towards when it comes to time management. I know Simon Edwards, he said he's just getting, again, he's still getting used to the car, which again, it does take up to couple of seasons to get properly in depth with a car. So again, time management is very, very key here, especially as we talked about, a track that's this aggressive on tyres and this fast. You do have to be on the ball. We've seen, I think Dave Dowson's just had a bit of a moment. Yeah, we've got a couple of replays to look at, actually, if we can, we'll get those queued up. But yeah, that's, let's not count the battle still happening, because Matt Hutchinson has managed to find his composure again. He's now catching back up to Luke Maxwell, I think, or at least holding his ground. Are they going to both be able to catch back up to Simon Edwards? That is the question. They might even be actually, not necessarily at this point working together as such, but yeah, Matt Hutchinson, I know he was trying to fight it a little bit, but I'm wondering maybe should he have actually just sort of let the move happen, I suppose, because Maxwell does have pace and they could both work together at this point, I feel, which is seems to be what they are. Again, there's no real, even but Hutchinson, if he does catch up, I imagine that he's going to try and work together to catch back up to Simon Edwards, and then they can push from there.
Well, Simon Edwards was hoping that something was going to kick off behind, and that certainly did happen with Hutchinson going offline. Here's Oliver Etridge's spin from another angle. That was going through Cascades, and he parks it in the kitty litter. Another one. Also, yep. Etridge has been now currently in 11th position ahead of Martina Ward, who's rounding out the top 12 with Dave Dowson still on the lead lap as things stand, with Phil Glover still circulating, but is the only back marker that drivers are going to have to get past. There's Dave Dowson again through Cascades. Oh, 180 backwards onto the grassy knoll he goes, but manages to regain it. That was definitely a Code Brown moment right there for Dave Dowson in the number 12.
It was indeed, wasn't it? It's, again, you wouldn't... like I said, Cascades is a tricky one, again, isn't it? Because you've got the offload of the suspension as you go through over the crest, and then as it compresses, once again, it compresses in the braking zone, but it's quite an aggressive compression. Couple that with a car that's pretty stiff in terms of the chassis, and it's quite a short chassis as well. It all happens very, very quickly. But again, just look at this livery. What a stunning livery this is. It's such a well-inspired... It's an iconic livery anyway. Let's be honest.
Yeah, definitely. When you've had the likes of Mario Andretti and Ayrton Senna run that livery in the late 70s and mid 80s, when before Brown's just had a bit of a tank slapper. Like you were saying about Cascades, coming back to where we saw Dave Dowson's 180-degree spin into the grass. You're coupling that with also the front end understeer as well, and yeah, that was. That was coming out of turn one. That was through Old Hall Corner, going down in towards Denton's, then into Cascades. So Graham Brown, very, very lucky to get away with that one, because that could have been nasty if the car had snapped and put him into the wall on the inside of Old Hall Corner there.
Very much so, yes. We've just been told that Dave Dowson has had an incident. So we'll see if we're, again, possibly a replay of that. And unfortunately, Dave Dowson has lost quite a bit of time. Have a look at the top three, though. So the gap between Simon Edwards and Luke Maxwell is now under a second, but the gap between Maxwell and Matt Hutchinson is under 0.7 of a second. So the gap is closing down. Simon Edwards is being hunted very, very slowly. It's not by too much, but it is by enough that he is going to have to worry about both of these drivers come the end of the race. Last lap, both drivers are about a 1/10.5 faster. If you add that in with the amount of laps you've got left, it's going to be close. Bear in mind, once you get about 8 tenths in, 7 tenths away, you start getting quite a bit of help or hindrance, depending on which way you look at it. But a track that's this long, especially with the straights after the hairpin, you do have a bit of help with the toe. As long as you can manage it through the corners and manage that additional aero wash that you're going to receive, it can help you. Again, you see on the timing tower on the left-hand side, it's ticked to under that second again, and that where it seems to be hovering is actually 8 tenths now. It's really getting close here.
Yeah, John McHutchinson, last lap was the fastest lap of the race at 1 minute 18.13. I think it's very strategic now what Maxwell and McHutchinson are doing. Rather than having all that aero wash, by being so close together, they're being a bit more strategic. They're letting the race play a little bit into their hands, because you can see the distance between Edwards and Maxwell to McHutchinson. You can get still a pretty good slipstream from a further distance away.
Yes, absolutely. It's the trade-off with the aero wash and what it's actually going to give you. But again, we see it's pretty much even Stevens between the top three now. You see the concertina effect. John Hutchinson got caught right back up to the back of Maxwell. I tell you what, the pace, it was 3.5 tenths faster than both Maxwell and Edwards. And that's another very, very quick lap as well. It's still faster than both of the two up ahead. I tell you what, If Hudson has got the pace to win this, he has got the pace to win this, as long as he can look after his tyres. We talked about that as well. Tyre management, very, very key. They're coming into that stage of the race now, 7 laps to go, where the tyres will start dropping off now. We're not probably going to see these fast. These are probably where the peak performance of the tyre is going to be. Even with the fuel drop off, I don't think it really has the desired effect. The tyres will start to tail off here. This very well could be the determining factor. But Simon Edwards, look at that. He's lost a little bit more time. And he's been caught up a tiny bit more by Luke Maxwell. It's going to be a very, very aggressive defensive drive here. There's a back marker that looks, I think that's Phil Glover. Up ahead, as we see, yes, it is. That's Phil Glover. And he has, I mean, that's one way to...
oh, dear.
To go with blue flags. Certainly not the way that he would have wanted. And unfortunately, he's now got to wait for everyone to go by.
Yeah, I think Maxwell has got the pace to close in on Edwards. But look, I mean, we're going to see this replay here. This is Dave Dowson. This is going into one of the right-handers. Oh, now this is that's a tank slapper. That is actually going through Lodge Corner and into Deer Leap. Manages to hold on the brakes, spools the wheels up. Lights the tyres and puts a couple of 11s on the grass to rejoin going through Deer Leap. But that's another place that you don't really want to have a moment like that. But one of the biggest selling points I've seen, maybe Simon Edwards has been, because let's not forget, he's led the race from the start. McHutchinson tried to go on the offensive around the outside of Cascades on the very first lap. It didn't work out. It put Maxwell into second position. McHutchinson caught up to Maxwell. And then got past. Maxwell got past McHutchinson. So it's been a bit of a chess game. But now Maxwell has got McHutchinson. This is going into the fastest part of the circuit, into turn 7 here at Knickerbrook. And McHutchinson, wisely enough, decides to back out of it and put his car behind Maxwell, because he now knows that if he tries to set it up the inside there, too wide through Knickerbrook will never go, because someone will be spat out either to the left or to the right and hard into the barriers.
Very, very true. The other thing as well is you're just going to lose more time by doing that. You know, all 3 of these drivers have got an equal opportunity to win, in all honesty, and they've only got 6 laps left to do it. So they've now got to play. They do have to work with each other, especially Maxwell and Hutchinson, to make sure they can keep with Simon Edwards. There's no point battling with those two because they want the win. Once you get down to the last 2 or 3 laps, it's probably going to be, well, maybe even starting to get to now. This is probably going to be the next closest opportunity that the driver's going to get. So it's pretty much, I would suggest now it's a bit more fair game. They're going to be battling with each other now. Maxwell does have a bit of breathing room to Hutchinson. You can see back there. So I wonder if Hutchinson has just backed off a bit to conserve, try and cool the tyres down, let these two battle up ahead, and then he's going to try and pounce with some fresh tyres. But as you say, Edwards might have been looking after his tyres right from the word go, which would make sense as he has been leading from the start. So this could also provide a nice opportunity so that Simon Edwards can actually start pushing the car a little bit more in these final laps. He might just have left something ready for this final push.
Very much the case, because Maxwell last time was equal on pace. We're going to have this is Graham Brown in the JPS Tribute livery band, and this is going in towards Shell Oil's corner, and loses the back end whilst actually trying to go through the midway point of the circuit itself. Mike Busson's had a drama, and he's gone hard into the barriers. That was coming out of Cascades and going into Lakeside, so the front end of that SR10 needs very much virtual rearranging. But yeah, I mean, looking at the previous lap times, Edwards did a 1 minute 19.17. Luke Maxwell was 2 1,000ths quicker. McHutchinson, as you said, stood back, and now McHutchinson is the quickest of the trio. He nearly went quicker by a second on that previous lap. It was a 1 minute 19.5 the last lap around. It was a 1 minute 18.54. So I think with this tyre management, Edwards might have just sort of decided, I'm not going to turn in too hard because I'm going to counter that understeer. It's going to punish the right front. I need to have all my weapons sharp against these two behind me, because if I know that they're going to make a move, I need to anticipate it. And you can see how much tighter on the apex through Shell Oil's corner was both Maxwell and McHutchinson. They are definitely pushing, but Edwards is being cautious. He wants to pick up more than 1 race win this season, because Luke Maxwell has already had 4, and he's gunning for number 5.
Very, very true indeed. Final stage of this race then. 4 laps to go. It's all... Time is starting to run out, in all honesty, for Maxwell and Hutchinson, because they can get close, but they just can't seem to quite get close enough. As you say, Edwards, you saw it, as you say, going through the hairpin. It's just a little bit of a wider apex, cutting back in, allowing the car to rotate more on its own terms, which does help with the tyres. Matt Hutchinson, I really think, again, that little bit of a cool down on the tyres has really helped. It's going to allow him to push. It might be... It's too late for him now to do another one of those. He's only got 3 laps left to do it. And if he wants to get this position, Maxwell's going to be hard enough to get past. But then not only have you got to get past Maxwell, you're then in the middle of Simon Edwards and Maxwell. So... You know, in all honesty, I wouldn't want to be Maxwell at this point because you've got one driver in front and one driver behind. Very, very wide there. That would have been an off track for him. Again, you can see again, he's just pushing that car very, very aggressively. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be Maxwell here because you've got to look at both your rearview mirrors and in front of you.
You're basically piggy in the middle in this kind of situation.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't just the fact that Maxwell went wide coming out of Cascades at turn 3. Both he and Edwards went wide coming out of Old Hall Corner through turn 1. McHutchinson was right on the apex like a good one, and now they're going to come through into turn 7 here at Knickerbrook. Who's going to be the bravest of the brave? Are they going to wait until probably Druid's Corner, which will be in a couple of corners time as they go up the crest through Water Tower? It's going to be about that braking and turn in and just rotate the car. Don't try and fight the understeer. Work with it as opposed to working against it and hoping you're going to do something about it. I mean, Maxwell's just already saying to Edwards, with just over 2 laps to go, we're on to what's going to be now lap number 19. So 3 to go, including this one. It's all going to kick off, and Maxwell could be the danger person, but I'm still keeping my beady eyes on John McHutchinson, who's right up the back rear wing as Maxwell goes wide. Through Old Hall Corner, McHutchinson again goes back into the slipstream, through Denton's, into the left-hander here at Cascades. And now that's given another opportunity because Maxwell and McHutchinson have gone into battle again. Edwards is probably smiling like the proverbial Cheshire Cat right now from Alice in Wonderland.
Do you know what? And I don't blame him. Why would you not? Because, again, this is exactly what he wants. He gets a better exit. Look, I think the line that Edwards is taking, which is probably one of the... It's the optimum line that he needs to take because he needs to get a good run and have a later apex and try and cut the corner back off to maximise speed down this straight, which he does, and he doesn't actually lose too much time through here. That was a very, very aggressive direction change there from Hutchinson. Throws it into turn 7. Manages again to keep it all in check. Simon Edwards still holding his own at the front. Look at that, but Hutchinson again so late on the brakes. Pushes a bit wide on exit. That's what we're talking about. That's what you don't want. So that's going to hurt the tyres a tiny little bit more. Not too long to go.
It's going to be, they're going to, I mean, we're now going on to lap 20 out of 21. And Edwards still has a fractional lead over the 2 behind. And at the moment, as things stand, McHutchinson was the slowest out of all 3. Maxwell in the middle was only quicker than Edwards by half a tenth as they head down into turn 3 here at Cascades. Tighter on the apex goes Maxwell, runs a little bit wider on the exit, now going through Lakeside and in towards turn 4 here at Island Bend. Maxwell again showing his nose to Edwards. He's right in the draft now. He's got to try and take it easy. Got to tee it up now from Shallow Oil's corner. He's within a car length.
Good line.
And now Edwards pulls out of the corner, gets the power down nicely, using that power band of the turbocharger to good effect, and now gets a little bit of a run coming down through in towards Hilltop. And now it's the 4th gear, 180 km/h right-hander here at Knickerbrook. It's going to be close, and once again, Edwards just seamlessly, you know, he's been like a monotone TV at the moment. You know, same colour every single lap, has nailed every apex, every braking spot, not put a foot wrong. Whereas the 2 behind have come into strife here or there in the early goings of the race. But we're coming up towards what's going to be the final lap. It is going to be a very, very close finish. Out of Deerleap, final lap is underway.
Indeed, white flag has been waved. We do have a couple of other battles going on, but this is just the closest we currently have on track. We have Paul Clark, Paul LeMay, and we also have Damien G and Dave Rolston that are battling a piece. So we will be keeping you up to date again if those do change. But again, this is the one. This is the closest that Luke Maxwell has been this entire race, and he is on the last lap. If there's going to be a move, it's going to have to be. It's not going to be a move going through turn 4. Possibly a last-minute lunge. No, it's going to have to be a very, very clean exit. Simon Evans goes a bit wide, but again, he gets the cutback. Look at that. He pulls away slightly. Maxwell has a bit of a wiggle on the exit. That will cost him. And in fact, I think this may very well be it. This is going to be the closest. Again, he has to be close coming down into turn 11. Again, just sticks the nose out, trying to upset Simon Edwards, but nothing as it stands at the moment. Still very, very close washes a little bit wide, but manages to keep it all in check. 3 more corners to go. It's going to be very, very close. But look at Hutchinson. He's just all of a sudden come out of nowhere that he might try and make a lunge down into Luke Maxwell on the penultimate, or maybe going into the last corner. It's going to be 1 more corner to go. We see Luke Maxwell. There's going to be no lunge happening there, is there? Not a chance. And it is going to be drag race down to the line. But Simon Edwards, what a performance that was, taking the victory there. Luke Maxwell second, and that's for Hutchinson in third. What a drive there. But from all 3 of them, what a drive. But Simon Edwards in particular, the amount of pressure he was under, manages to keep it controlled. Absolutely fantastic. We've got Paul LeMay in 4th and Paul Clark in 5th. And then a bit of a drag race down. This is the next closest battle, was Rolliston and Damien G. And pretty close, less than 2 tenths apart as they come across the finish line. So, yeah, a couple of drivers to finish, then we'll get you your finishing results. But what a drive from Edwards.
He did exactly what he needed to do. You know, he's now got 2 wins to his credit. That's a total of 10 top 5 finishes over 11 races so far, and that's going to put him into good stead into the season finale in just a week's time at the of all places. What a way to finish his season. It's Nürburgring Nordschleife, the Industriefahrten layout on September the 1st. But yeah, Edwards didn't put a foot wrong. Maxwell did a great job. McHutchinson, you know, it's going to be close between those 3, but it was all about who was going to measure it most. The biggest crux is turn 5, Shell Oil's corner for Edwards was a goldmine, because if you turn too close in towards that inner apex, you've got that adverse right-hand camber. And what's happening is that when you're trying to put the power down, what will happen is that the car won't get traction. Whereas Edwards did basically, he didn't go high, wide and handsome, he didn't go right up close to the apex, he went straight down the middle. And that was probably the best thing that he could have done, but, you know, he kept it nice and steady. So on your screens, what we have is our finishing order for round 11 of season 3 of the 2022 UK and Ireland Radical Race Series here at Oulton Park. Simon Edwards taking the win by just over 0.3 of a second ahead of Luke Maxwell, still very much in the championship fight, with John McHutchinson, the Flying Scotsman, rounding out the top 3 positions, covered by 6.5 tenths. Paul LeMay, the Nissan Tribute livery band, finishes ahead of Paul Clark, rounding out the top 5. Graham Brown, David Rolliston, rounding out the top 7 with Damien Gee in 8th and the number 40, just fractionally behind the number 262, with Graham Brown being what looked to be the last of the classified finishers that actually finished all 21 laps of racing. Oliver Ettridge down in 10th, ahead of Phil Glover, Mike Bousson, Martina Ward and Dave Dowson completing the 14-strong Radical SRT 10s that competed here in the leafy Cheshire countryside.
Indeed. So sorry, my mic was muted. That's never good, is it? Yeah, I was just saying, you know, to finish.
You know what you did there? You forgot to hit push to talk.
I did. But yeah, like we said, while I was talking to myself, I was saying to finish first you must finish. And Simon Edwards did a very, very good job hitting the marks exactly the same as he needed to do every single lap. And it absolutely paid off and turned into a win. Maxwell was second, obviously, so the points gap between the two has increased, but it has increased slightly. So again, depending on the math and how the drop rounds will work out, then this could be a very, very close last round. It has very much come down to the wire once again. We do have a couple of interviews, I believe. And first off, what we're going to do is we're going to have a very, very quick chat with Luke Maxwell. Luke, hopefully, all being well, you'll be able to hear us. Yeah, so second place that round. I mean, 4 tenths away from Simon Edwards, and you were pressuring him pretty much throughout the entire race. Just talk us through it, because that was one hell of a drive.
It was probably the toughest race I've ever had. I think it was, I think it was very important to try and get a good quali lap in, to try and get up the grid, because it's very, very hard to overtake there. So I was just, hanging on in there, trying to make sure John didn't send it, and trying to keep Simon under pressure. I couldn't get past him. It was just, kind of just trying to be safe really and stay in his, stay with him and maybe try and put him off a bit and see if he made a mistake and I could slip alongside. But no, that was tough, very, very tough.
It was tough, but it was thoroughly enjoyable to watch. Going down into obviously the final round, it's still close. We'll obviously have to work out with what the math suggests, but it's either way, it's very, very close between yourself and Simon Edwards.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Yeah, bring on next week. I'm looking forward to it. To be honest, it should be good fun at Nords. I know Simon. I think Simon's quick round there. So yeah, let's have a go and see if we can do it.
Absolutely. So, Luke, congratulations again on PT. Very well done. And we'll be catching up, all being well, next week.
Cheers, guys. Yeah, all the best.
There we go, Luke Maxwell, P2. Alex, would you like to have a quick chat with the winner of today's race, Mr. Simon Edwards?
Yeah, let's go for it. Simon, a very good evening. Firstly, a fantastic drive, leading from lights out to checkered, picking up your second win of the season. Consistency has been very much the rule of form for you for season 3. You had a tough ask though against both Luke Maxwell and John McHutchinson that were pushing you all the way, especially in the latter stages.
Yeah, I'd eaten the tyres. I wasn't disciplined enough in the first half of the race, so I'm just glad this track's quite hard to overtake on. But yeah, I had to stay on my wits, but I kept making critical mistakes and letting them come at me, but luckily none of them paid off. So I was a bit sweaty, but just kept it together enough. But yeah, don't know why I don't normally eat my tyres like that, but I did that race.
I think with the characteristics of Oulton Park, there's a lot of right-handers. I mean, especially going into turn 5 at Shell Oils, where you were sort of like lining it up more on the mid part of the track rather than going high or going tighter into the apex. Did that help with the traction getting out of turn 5, did it, a little bit?
That was the only thing that was saving me. So I was just concentrating on getting out that corner as fast as I could get out of it and hope that would save me from any attack, which it did at that stage. It's the next corner that I got caught out on, but luckily John couldn't quite squeeze alongside, so I got away with that.
And of course, season 3 goes into the final round at Nords next week. How are you feeling? Because it's going to be close between you and Luke Maxwell for the overall title.
It is, and it's one of John's specialist tracks as well, so we're going to have to try and hang on to his coattails. In this car it might be a bit tricky as well, so again, because it can eat the tyres and there's corner after corner there, apart from the very long straight. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Well, Simon, congratulations of your second victory here at Oulton Park for season 3 2022. All the very best of luck for next week at the season finale.
Thank you.
Very, very good stuff indeed. What we're going to do is we're going to have a quick chat with the one and only John McHutchinson. John, very, very good stuff. P3, again, another solid performance. I mean, Luke mentioned it and Simon Edwards mentioned it as well. It was a pretty tough race, and it certainly seemed it. There was a lot of battle, a lot of tussling between the three of you. Talk us through it from your side.
Yeah, it was close racing, but it's very difficult to pass around here. You need someone in front to make a mistake. Almost got Simon, kind of a squeeze me on the inside, didn't leave him much room, but that's racing. But I'm finally getting to grips with the car. A couple of tweaks I've made to it to suit my driving style, if you like. Tyres felt okay towards the end as well, so positive.
Well, talk us through how has the setup development sort of happened? Has it just been a steady bit throughout the season? It's just just been a little bit every race, and I know obviously you weren't here for a few rounds, but even so, like you mentioned, just getting to grips with the car. I think I mentioned this. It can take up to a couple of seasons to properly get in with the car. Is that something that you've been finding with this one? Is it?
Well, when the car came out, it didn't seem to matter what I did to the setup. It just felt the same. It felt horrible understeer, then snap oversteer. I couldn't change it. But I've done a few GT3 races and setups and that, and learning from that and taking it onto this car, and it seems to help a bit. I've learned more about the rebound and the camber and ride heights and stuff like that, so it seems to have helped a bit.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, positive things moving forward. Then fantastic stuff indeed. John, thank you very much for chatting to us. One round left to go, obviously, and it's going to be.
Oh yes.
I was about to say I wonder when that was going to come. So yeah, this is going to be certainly going to be an interesting one. We look forward to seeing you next week and seeing what you can come up with.
I won't meet next week. I'm away on holiday on Saturday.
No. Oh, John. Oh dear. Well, and then finishing on a strong note.
Yeah, I hope the guys all have a good race, and thanks for the broadcast, Daniel.
No worries.
You've done a good job, mate. Thanks a lot.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much, John.
Cheers.
Take care. Oh, there we go. I'm just going to have a very, very quick chat, if you don't mind, Alex, with Phil Glover.
Okay.
Again, Phil, good to have you with us again. Just talk us through, didn't quite seem to go your way with a couple of spins. Again, was it just a little bit struggling a little bit with the car and the track combo? Just talk us through your race.
Yeah, I think that was an understatement. Yeah, it was a bit of a challenge for me. Although I did run with a slot one on the rear wing, which most people I've just found out were running 6 or 7. Initially, it worked all right for me in qualifying because it kind of allowed the car to rotate a little bit. But as the tyres started to go off, it was a bit of a disaster, I think.
I think Simon mentioned that again. He just launched his tyres within the race. The problem is, we talked about it as well before, haven't we? Is like a spin generates more heat, and that then causes potential higher risk of having another spin. It just cascades really quickly, and before you know it, the tyres are gone. Well, final round at Nordic Life. What's your thoughts on that? We finished pretty much every season on Nordic Life. Is it going to be obviously with a new car this time? However, what's the confidence like going into next week?
Well, I quite like Nord. I'm not great at it, but as far as my ability goes, I'm generally okay on there. So what I think I need to do is run a standard setup, so there's no messing around, I think, this time.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. And like I said, if you get a set you're comfortable, especially around something at Nordschleife, that's half of that. That's almost all of the battle. So I'm very much looking forward to catching up with you again there, Phil. So, no, really, really good stuff. Thank you very much for jumping in with us once again. And we look forward to catching up with you next week.
Yeah, I always enjoy our little chat. So, see you next week. Take care, guys. Bye.
Take care. But there we go, Alex. Round done and dusted. What an interesting round it was. Another great combination. And again, we're seeing a bit more love for this car, I think, now. Drivers are getting a bit more used to it.
Yeah, I think the thing is that with any new car, that drivers are going to have to get themselves to work around. The nuances, the different with the aero wash, the different profile at the front of the vehicle. I mean, at least now that no one has to worry about latching onto the coattails of one John McHutchinson, who said he's going to be away on holiday next week. So Simon Edwards and Luke Maxwell, I think you've got to get out of jail free card right there and then. But the battle's close between those two. It's going to go down to the wire. Next week is going to be an absolute fantastic crescendo, and I couldn't think of a better circuit to wrestle these cars around, the infamous Nürburgring Nordschleife.
Indeed, it's certainly going to be a very, very good race indeed, and we're lucky enough to be a part of it. Thank you all for everyone for watching. Thank you again, Alex, for jumping in with us for this penultimate round. It's absolutely fantastic being in the comms box with you once again, and hopefully the next time won't be too long before we are back in the comms booth together. Again, thank you to all the people that are watching, admins, people that race, obviously, within the Radical Race Series, just everyone. It's an absolute pleasure. One more round to go for this season, and then we'll see who will be crowned champion for season number 3 of the UK and Ireland Radical Race Series. But, as always, everyone, take care, stay safe.